Are you tired of feeling like your life isn't moving forward? Time goes by and everything seems the same. Just repetitions, self-sabotage, and that sense of stagnation that halts your growth. If you feel you're living below your potential, it's because you are. And until you face what's blocking you, nothing changes. Today I'll get straight to the point. In this video you'll gain practical tools to reprogram your mind, change your internal state, and align your energy with a new future. What separates those who stay stuck from those who achieve transformation is a choice. To act now and absorb knowledge that few dare to apply. Only those who watch until the end discover how to turn the key and access self-mastery, inner power, and psychological growth. Go ahead and leave your like. That strengthens the channel and shows you're committed. And beware, many people watch the videos, learn, and then miss out on transformative content by not being subscribed. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't let your evolution slip away. Your transformation starts here. It's up to you to watch all the way through. Have you noticed how the relentless pursuit of results only reinforces the cycle of suffering? Deep down, chasing what you desire most only intensifies the feeling of emptiness. The unconscious, as Carl Jung pointed out, moves by mental patterns that operate in silence. Patterns that, when fueled by anxiety, end up blocking your inner power. It's at that exact point that emotional alchemy arises. Self-mastery doesn't reveal itself when we try to force life, but when we dare to stop, breathe, and simply allow. In silence, emotional control flourishes and magnetic presence begins to manifest, distancing the obsessive effort that so often leads us to exhaustion. True transformation isn't the fruit of haste, but of profound emotional detachment. Society taught us that only those who never rest, who never allow a moment of pause, truly conquer. But the paradox is brutal. The harder you try, the more the universe resists, feeding the ego and its desperate desire for control. Suffering grows, emotional pain amplifies, and soon we find ourselves trapped in cycles of self-sabotage. Jung showed us that personal development involves recognizing these unconscious traps, and that the cycle only breaks when we radically accept that stopping is not losing, but opening space for the new. Magnetic presence is born the precise moment you allow yourself to do nothing. Yes, just as you hear, there is power in silence, in that moment when you simply observe what you feel, with no hurry to change or judge. It's in the interval between one reaction and the next that the strength of self-mastery is revealed. Old mental patterns lose their influence when we stop feeding them with the compulsion of, "I have to achieve it now." Authentic psychological growth arises from that internal space of radical acceptance, where inner transformation happens organically, without forced effort. You're invited to try a simple exercise right now. When you sense the anxiety to act, to seek, to justify yourself, take a pause, breathe deeply, and let silence take command. Observe your body language. Notice what your unconscious wants to communicate beyond words. Don't fall into the ego's trap, which turns desire into suffering. Practice emotional detachment, trust in the alchemy of emptiness, and watch how everything begins to reorganize around your new energy. Self-mastery isn't born of control, but of full acceptance of present experience. Are you willing to stop and, by doing so, profoundly transform your destiny? It's easy to believe that words or declared intentions move reality, but in truth it's the unconscious that dictates the rules of the game. Carl Jung showed that what you hide even from yourself, what dwells in the pores of your mind, possesses a magnetic power beyond the ego's control. Hidden beliefs, deeply rooted in your mental patterns, manifest in every everyday detail, in your body language, in your silences, or even in the kind of people you attract. That internal energy is the silent force that creates, repeats, and sustains everything that happens outside. You can repeat mantras, make positive affirmations, and seek motivation every day. But if the unconscious isn't aligned, suffering persists. What matters isn't the declared intention, but the emotional frequency that underpins your most secret thoughts. In this sense, personal development is a journey of radical honesty, recognizing your own shadows, embracing unresolved emotional pain, and facing head-on the memories and emotions that continue to govern your choices. Only then, in the silence of conscious observation, do you begin to transform the energy that truly moves your life. Inner power is born from that integration. Notice now, what thoughts or emotions arise without you being able to control them? What patterns repeat themselves Even when you do everything to avoid them, the unconscious acts like a mirror. It returns to the world what you insist on ignoring within yourself. Emotional alchemy occurs when you set out to illuminate those hidden beliefs, bringing them to the center of consciousness without judgment. Self-mastery isn't about suppressing what hurts, but about welcoming and transmuting suffering into learning, psychological growth, and resilience. Practice internal listening. Reserve a few minutes of your day to immerse yourself in silence and perceive which energy is really guiding your actions. Try writing, uncensored, everything you feel and think, even if it seems disconnected. Let the unconscious speak, and instead of fighting it, offer radical acceptance. It's in that space of deep listening that you access the true power of inner transformation. It's not the external world that needs to change. It's the quality of your energy, your inner dialogue, and the silence that resonates at the deepest level of your soul. Are you ready to hear what your unconscious has been trying to tell you for so long? Emotional detachment is one of the greatest tests of self-mastery, and also one of the most misunderstood. Most people confuse detachment with giving up, surrendering, or becoming apathetic toward life. But true detachment, according to Carl Jung and the principles of deep psychology, is born of unwavering trust in one's own inner power. Letting go of control doesn't mean abandoning dreams or ceasing to act, but accepting with maturity that forcing results is often the fastest path to suffering. Excessive control is a manifestation of the ego, driven by fear of loss, and ends up sabotaging psychological growth. By practicing detachment, you allow the unconscious to operate more freely, integrating mental patterns of radical acceptance. It's in the act of loosening the reins, of relaxing the fist that tries to hold on to the uncontrollable, that true magnetic presence arises. There is no more anxiety, only trust in life's flow. Suffering decreases, body language becomes more serene, and the energy around you changes, almost like an emotional alchemy. The curious thing is that the less we try to force, the more things fall into place. Wisdom lies in understanding that controlling everything is impossible, but trusting oneself, the process, and the unconscious is the path to overcoming. Begin practicing detachment with small things. When you feel the need to check everything to get immediate answers or to secure what's out of your reach, pause. Notice how your body reacts. Tension in your shoulders, shallow breathing, clenched jaw, and practice consciously letting go. Imagine dropping an invisible weight and allowing silence to envelop you for a few moments. This simple exercise is a gateway to deep inner transformation. Self-mastery grows as you learn to trust life and your own decisions, even when you don't have all the guarantees. Remember, detachment isn't indifference, it's resilience. It's continuing to love, desire, and dream, but without depending on results to be happy. It's transforming the emotional pain of loss into radical acceptance of what is, embracing both suffering and joy as natural parts of the journey. Each challenge calls you to review where you're putting your energy, in control or in trust. The unconscious perceives the difference, and the universe responds. What can you let go of now to create space for something greater? Keep exploring that surrender, because in the next step you'll receive an invitation to transformative silence. Few have the courage to allow emptiness, that space of silence where no answer is guaranteed and all control dissolves. Yet it's precisely there that true inner transformation begins. After detachment, when you let go of what you can no longer sustain, it's time to face nothingness. Emptiness isn't absence, but the fertile ground where seeds of the new self can germinate. Carl Jung spoke of the power of silence and the journey into the unconscious as the only real path to self-mastery. It is in that state of magnetic presence that you discover internal resources, previously repressed sensations, and a new perception of who you really are. Emptiness provokes discomfort because the ego fears losing reference points. Suffering seems to increase, for old answers no longer work and the new has yet to arrive. But this is the creative chaos that precedes any psychological rebirth. Emotional pain is inevitable on this journey, but instead of running from it, the invitation is to radically accept silence. Here, mental patterns crumble, and in their place, the possibility of true overcoming emerges. It is in that pause, where everything seems stuck, that the unconscious works its emotional alchemy. Fragments of the shadow come to light, and inner power reveals itself like gold drawn from mud. Allowing emptiness means trusting that life knows what it's doing. It's an exercise in resilience, for it demands letting go of the urge to fill every space, to flee from loneliness, to seek distractions so as not to feel. Try for a few minutes to sit in absolute silence, observing the flow of thoughts without clinging to any. Notice your body language. The body tends to move, to seek activity, but insist on stillness. This practice of self-mastery paves the way for the emergence of the new, of a more integrated presence, free from the mental noise that only feeds suffering and anxiety. In emptiness, you discover you don't need to define yourself by pain or by the roles the unconscious repeated for so long. There arises a state of radical acceptance, where the ego quiets and essence can finally emerge. Creative chaos organizes itself into a new pattern, not imposed, but felt, acknowledged, and lived. Silence is not the end, but the antechamber of unprecedented expansion. What do you find when you dare not to flee emptiness? Get ready, because the journey continues, and the next step is to integrate everything that pain and silence have brought to light. Observing your own desire is one of the keys to self-mastery. How many times have you found yourself obsessed with something, feeling you'd only be happy upon achieving a certain result? That obsession is nothing more than the manifestation of unhealed wounds in the unconscious. Carl Jung already taught, what you don't integrate within you, you compulsively seek outside. Obsessive desire springs from lack, from that old emotional pain never truly welcomed. Behind the anxiety to manifest something lies the hidden desire to overcome suffering, to fill an existential void that can only be resignified through radical acceptance of who you are with all your parts. True manifestation is the fruit of inner integration, not the fight against yourself. When you stop dividing yourself between what you feel and what you want to show the world, inner power strengthens. Psychological growth happens when magnetic presence no longer feeds off the ego, but off silence and acceptance of one's own shadows. Integration isn't denying desire, but perceiving its true origin. Mental patterns of scarcity and self-sabotage lose strength when you allow yourself to look at your own wounds, embrace suffering, and transform emotional pain into self-knowledge. The next step is to look at ego and soul, to perceive the difference between wanting to control and simply trusting. Are you willing to stop searching outside and begin integrating everything that exists within? The ego is a master at creating illusions of control. It feeds on old mental patterns, reinforcing the idea that we will only be happy when everything is under our command. However, that incessant effort to control reality generates only more suffering, as the unconscious ends up dominated by anxiety and fear. Carl Jung teaches us that the ego is only a small part of what we really are, the surface of our identity, often guided by unresolved emotional pains and a constant desire for approval. When you act from the ego, you disconnect from your inner power and get lost in an endless cycle of frustration. The soul, on the other hand, operates on a different plane. It trusts, lets go, and allows life to flow without the need for immediate answers. In that sense, self-mastery doesn't consist in controlling everything, but in radically accepting what escapes the ego's control. Magnetic presence arises when you abandon the urge to manipulate outcomes and begin to act from essence, guided by trust in the process and resilience in the face of challenges. Silence becomes an ally, and your body language conveys calm and openness, signaling to the unconscious that there is no longer reason to struggle against reality. In the game between ego and soul, you are the one who decides. The ego always seeks external approval, creates expectations, and feeds suffering at the first sign of frustration. The soul, by contrast, only desires peace. It does not compete, justify itself, or carry the weight of self-judgment. The path of inner transformation lies in recognizing when we act out of fear, and in that moment, pausing. Practicing silence and radical acceptance are daily exercises in psychological growth, allowing the unconscious to work in your favor, dissolving limiting patterns, and making room for a lighter, more integrated life. Give it a try. The next time you feel the urge to control a situation, stop for a few seconds and ask yourself, does this come from the ego or the soul? Feel your body, notice the emotions, and practice letting go of control, even if only for a brief moment. This is how you begin to experience an inner freedom that transcends intellectual understanding, touching the deepest part of your being. And by relinquishing control, Life begins to reorganize itself in surprising ways, bringing peace where there was once only tension. Are you ready to choose the voice of the soul, even when the ego clamors for answers? The next step is to embrace your shadows and discover true manifestation. Most people want to manifest a better life while ignoring what they fear most in themselves. The unconscious, however, is not fooled. Carl Jung shows us that true personal development begins when we decide to face our shadow head-on. Everything we reject, hide, or deny out of fear of suffering. Inner power is born from the courage to confront the most difficult parts of the psyche, to embrace emotional pains, failures, and contradictions without self-judgment. It is in that moment of radical acceptance that emotional alchemy occurs, transforming old mental patterns into creative potential. To manifest without integrating the shadow is like building a house on sand. It only takes the first challenge for everything to collapse. Self-mastery consolidates when you stop running from yourself and start dialoguing with the hidden aspects of your being. This demands resilience and a genuine openness to silence, where you listen to what you would normally try to silence. Body language reveals a lot. Tensions, automatic movements, evasive glances are clues to what has yet to be accepted. Embracing the shadow is, above all, an act of compassion, as it recognizes that overcoming doesn't come from denial, but from conscious integration. The suffering we so often try to avoid is many times the gateway to deep inner transformation. Accepting our own limitations, mistakes, and contradictions allows magnetic presence to strengthen, since there is no longer internal division. The unconscious begins to operate in harmony, mental patterns reorganize, and personal energy changes frequency. Practice the exercise of listing without filters what bothers you most about yourself. Instead of fighting those traits, try to listen to them, understand where they come from, and what unconscious needs they express. The simple act of listening already initiates the process of overcoming and liberation. It's only possible to manifest a truly authentic life when your entire psyche is aligned. Light and shadow, desire and fear, strength and vulnerability. Working with the shadow never ends. It deepens at each stage of the journey. If something challenges, confronts, or provokes discomfort in you today, treat it as an opportunity for evolution, not failure. What are you avoiding feeling or admitting? Are you willing to embrace even what scares you in order to access your inner power? In the next step, we'll see how the greatest blockade of your destiny may actually be yourself. Many spend their lives believing that the real obstacles lie outside: circumstances, people, lack of opportunities. But, in Carl Jung's vision, the greatest blockade of all is internal. It springs from self-judgment, from refusal to accept who you really are. The unconscious works tirelessly to protect old wounds, generating mental patterns of self-sabotage and reinforcing a distorted image of your own worth. That inner fragmentation, that eternal conflict between what you feel and what you believe you should feel, feeds suffering, drains resilience, and prevents true inner transformation. Self-acceptance is not accommodation. It's the first and most fundamental act of inner power. Recognizing and embracing both light and shadow, both successes and failures, opens space for genuine psychological growth. When you stop judging yourself for every thought or emotion, self-mastery emerges from within outward, without the obsessive effort of control. Silence stops being a place of threat and becomes a territory of peace, where magnetic presence flourishes and the unconscious can finally reorganize its patterns in favor of overcoming. Observe your own inner dialogue. How many times a day do you criticize, compare, or belittle yourself? Each self-judgment is an invitation to reinforce fragmentation. It's as if, with every critique, a new crack appears in your self-perception. Try, at the next moment of discomfort, to pause and practice radical acceptance. Breathe deeply and allow yourself to feel, without having to correct or hide anything. This simple practice is revolutionary, as it returns the key to your own destiny to the individual, undoing the role of victim and taking, responsibly, command of your own journey. Real transformation only begins when you become whole again, integrating everything the unconscious has fragmented throughout your life. It's not about eliminating suffering, but about embracing it as an essential part of the process of self-knowledge. Are you willing to stop being the blockade of your own life? The next step is to remember, not create, the destiny that has always existed within you. Ready to take that leap of consciousness? Many search ceaselessly for manifestation formulas, believing they must create from scratch a life different from the one they have today. But deep psychology, inspired by Carl Jung, reveals a bewildering secret. You don't manifest anything that doesn't already exist, at some level, in your unconscious. Every genuine desire is a calling of the soul to remember who you essentially have always been. Personal development is, above all, a process of return, a rescue of inner power, magnetic presence, and authenticity that suffering and old mental patterns tried to erase. True inner transformation occurs when you stop searching outside and begin courageously exploring the vast territory of the unconscious. There, in the quietest corners of your psyche, lie forgotten dreams, gifts, and potentials. To manifest is therefore an act of remembering, of every overcoming, of every emotional pain transmuted into resilience, of every shadow embraced and integrated. Radical acceptance of that process creates space for organic psychological growth, where there is no obsessive effort but the natural flow of one who recognizes themselves as whole. When you understand that none of what you desire is truly external, self-mastery stops being a distant ideal and becomes a daily experience. It's no longer about conquering, but about allowing silence to reveal your essence, dissolving layers of ego and inner fragmentation. Mental patterns that once blocked your evolution now become allies, helping decipher the body language of the soul and signaling that resistance is over. To manifest is above all an exercise in remembering who you are, an emotional alchemy that turns suffering into freedom. Here's a practical exercise. Each time you desire something intensely, ask yourself if that desire is really an invitation to remember who you were before conditioning, fear, and self-judgment. Meditate on your greatest emotional pains and ask yourself what they try to remind you about your strength, creativity, and capacity for self-mastery. After all, everything you seek already exists, just waiting for you to remember it. Are you prepared to stop searching and finally allow yourself to be who you've always been? Now tell me, what unconscious pattern binds you most today? What in your life truly needs to transform? Share your experience or insight in the comments. I want to know where this video took you. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now and turn on notifications. That's the only way to guarantee access to content that can revolutionize your mind and your destiny. Click on the next recommended video that will appear on the screen. It will deepen your journey of self-mastery and inner transformation even further. See you later, and master your unconscious.